Hello, my name is Anne, and this is Postcards from My Golden Years. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video today. Before I get started, if you're not a subscriber, please click below, subscribe, and after you watch this video, if you enjoyed it, if I gave you some interesting, helpful information, please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. It does help the algorithms with YouTube, and they will show it to more people so that hopefully it will become helpful for more people than just you and I. First of all, before I decided to do this video, I went off on YouTube and I did a search to see how many other people had done videos on raising a mentally challenged child. And I didn't find a whole lot of them. I don't know whether that's people don't want to talk about it or ashamed or embarrassed. One thing that I did find, I found a few videos about people who had regrets about giving birth to a mentally challenged child, and I was shocked. My son could not have been more wanted. Now, I did not know that he was mentally challenged when I was pregnant. I had a very normal pregnancy and a very normal delivery, and when I gave birth to this little bundle of joy, and he had all of the requisite tests in the hospital, he tested fine, normal, no problem. So I thought that I brought home a perfectly normal, happy little boy. I don't understand anybody who could possibly regret having brought a mentally challenged child into this life. I personally believe that God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and that God gives those special challenges to people that he or she believes can handle them. So, I have no regrets about having a mentally challenged child. When did I learn that my son was mentally challenged? Well, like most mothers, when your child is growing up, you kind of compare your child to what other children are doing. My son was walking at age 9, and I was so excited because a lot of other friends that I had, their children weren't walking at 9 months old, but he was standing and walking, and so I thought that was thrilling. However, when he was a little over a year old and he wasn't talking, I started to be a little bit concerned, and both of his grandmothers were concerned. And fortunately, I had a good friend who was a neighbor who had a friend that was on the board of directors for the local chapter of the ARC. And she put me in touch with her friend, who invited me to bring Ryan, my son, in for an evaluation with one of their staff members. By this time, he was probably 1.5, close to 2 years old. So I did that. And while they reminded me that I shouldn't compare my son to other children because children develop at different rates, she suggested that my son might be developmentally delayed, and suggested that I take him to see a neurologist. So we found a doctor, a neurologist at Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia, which was closest to us at the time. And at the time, the doctor that I was referred to was supposedly one of the finest neurologists in the country. So I took my son to see him, and he invited an endocrinologist in to meet with my ex-husband and I, and our little son, who is just a little toddler at this point. And they looked at him with a magnifying glass and measuring tapes, and they measured him ear looking for abnormalities. And they could not find anything except one thing. They found that in his palm, he has a line that goes across the center in both, I think it was both palms. And they said that Down syndrome children have that line that goes across their palm like that, but not everyone who has that is Down syndrome. So that was the only thing that they could point out that was abnormal. And they simply said, you know what, you're just going to have to sit back, not be impatient, and just see where things go. In the meantime, I found a way to get my son into a program for developmentally delayed children that the ARC had at their location in New Jersey. And so he started going to this program. It started out, I believe it was a half-day program, and they would work with him. His primary thing back then was speech. He wasn't speaking. So they would do all kinds of therapies to try to get him to use his tongue and use his mouth, and ways to get him to communicate. And so they created a picture board, and they taught him some sign language so that he could talk to us at home, and taught us the sign language. And for a while, that's how we communicated with Ryan, with the picture board, where he would point to pictures of what he wanted, or he would use sign language. Ryan went to a public school for a lot of his education, but he was in special education classes. And it may have been a classroom that was in the public school where he attended classes with other children that had disabilities of all types mixed in the class. It wasn't a whole classroom of just children like Ryan. Periodically, we would bring him back to the neurologist in Philadelphia, who would observe. And so the doctor mentioned that he had actually seen other children over the years with this, and one of the children, in fact, had eventually sort of, I want to say, snapped out of whatever it was. He eventually caught up with other children his age and managed to be mainstreamed in public school, went on to graduate from high school, and was in the process of applying to colleges. So he said, you know, it can go anyway. Nobody knows where Ryan will go, but whatever he does, he will be a happy guy, and he will have a fulfilling life. And so that's where we are. So as of today, there's still no name for what Ryan has. And you can tell that Ryan, there's some issue with Ryan if you speak with him. He speaks at maybe a 4 or 5-year-old level, sometimes a 3-year-old level. He does not speak in full sentences. And we continue to work with him. All of the people in his life and on his team continue to work with him. But speech is his major issue. Some people, when they meet Ryan for the first time, they think that he's a foreign person and doesn't have very good command of the English language. Once you talk to him for a while, you start to pick up on what he's saying. Sometimes he's not as easy to understand. I call it Ryanese. And if you live with Ryan, or you spend a lot of time with Ryan day to day, soon you understand exactly what he's saying. But for the most part, every now and then I don't know what he's saying, and I'll ask him to repeat it, and then sometimes we both give up because I don't know what he's saying and he doesn't know how to say it any differently. When Ryan was a teenager, I would say maybe junior high or high school level, he transferred to a technical school in the area. And the technical school, he did not attend standard technical classes. The special ed class for that particular school district was in a technical school, and this gave them the ability to teach Ryan some technical skills that you might learn in a tech school if you're a tech school student, a normal technical school student. So he might learn to cook, he might learn to do things with plants, he might learn to build things in like a wood shop or something like that. And so his days were spent learning survival skills, learning how to do things that Ryan needs to function independently. So his vocabulary was developed. Mostly survival words were encouraged, although obviously all of his teachers and therapists wanted him to speak as close to the rest of us as possible. But there was an emphasis on life words, men's room, ladies' room, danger, exit, entrance, stop sign, stop, do not enter, post office, bakery, bank. Things that if he were wandering around a community, he would learn to recognize as, oh, well, there's the men's room, and that's the ladies' room. I don't want to go there. And that's the post office, and that's the bank. So as part of his education, they would go on field trips to see these places, and they might have all the kids on a little bus, and maybe they go to a shopping center and they learn how to say post office, bank. Because he was mentally challenged, and we lived at the time in the state of Pennsylvania, he was allowed to continue in school until age 21, as long as all of his therapists and his team, counselors, county, as long as everyone agreed that he was benefiting from the education that he was getting. So he did indeed stay in school until he was 21 years old. And then he was part of graduation with the other children in his high school or school district. And they even had a prom for all of the kids that were in his class, which was really nice. It was separate from the regular high school prom. So what were some of his early achievements? Ryan's achievements were different than, obviously, than those of a normal child. And so we had lots of hills to climb with Ryan. And one of the most memorable things that I recall was the first time he was able to blow the candles out on his birthday cake. He was 4 years old. And this was a child that could not put his lips together and blow candles out. And so part of his therapy was learning to blow things out, learning to blow matches out, learning, in fact, to blow candles out. And I remember that all of the birthdays leading up to that, of course, when it was his birthday, we all helped him blow out his birthday candles. As much as he would make his mouth move in that position, he just didn't understand how to blow the candles out. So at age 4, he blew out his own birthday candles. And there wasn't much of a dry eye in the room. It was quite an achievement for my son. Another achievement that I remember is him learning to tie his shoes. I guess most children learn to do this when they're 3 or 4. I don't know, maybe later. At the time, my ex-husband and I were very fortunate, and we had a nanny living with us, and it was her job to take care of Ryan while we were at work, if he was home from school or when he came home from school. And she had 2 challenges that she had to complete with Ryan. And one of them was teach him to tie his shoes, and the other one was teach him to ride a 2-wheel bicycle without training wheels. And she accomplished both. And Ryan was so proud of himself that first day that he took off on his bicycle all by himself. We were all very proud of him. Here's an incident when Ryan was a child that I wanted to scream because I had been working all day, and Ryan had been with a babysitter who he would stay at her house after school for a little while until my ex-husband and I got home from work. And so we brought him home from work, and I was downstairs making dinner, and I went upstairs to get him. And he had taken the box of Band-Aids, and he Band-Aided all of his drawers, closet. He Band-Aided everything closed. So there were multiple Band-Aids on every drawer of his dresser, Band-Aids at the edges of the closet to keep it closed, Band-Aids at the seam of the door of his bedroom, anywhere that there was a seam. On one hand, I was fascinated by the fact that he figured out that the Band-Aid could hold things together like that. On the other hand, I was tired. I didn't have the patience, and I yelled at him for doing that, and I made him take all of the Band-Aids away and put them in the garbage before he could come down and have dinner, which he promptly did. I don't know if he truly understood what was wrong with what he did. I can look back at it now and laugh, but I think that night I happened to be tired, and I didn't have the patience for dealing with the sight that I went up to his bedroom and saw. And you know, you have those days. You have those days with normal children. Just one day at a time. That's the best that you can do. Well, I'll be very honest. First you cry. And if you don't, you're not human. First you cry. It was my first impulse. My ex-husband, my son's father, was extremely disappointed, obviously. He had these dreams that his son was going to be like every other normal little boy and go out in the front yard and play catch with him and talk about things with him that guys talk about and do things with him that guys do together. And for him, it was very hard to accept the fact that his little boy was not the perfect little boy that we thought that we brought home from the hospital. And it created a lot of problems in our marriage. My ex-husband tried very hard to be accepting of our son, but he was, I want to say, intolerant of imperfection. And in some ways that sort of helped Ryan. There were times that I felt that my ex-husband was much too strict. So, for example, whenever we took Ryan out, he had to be the most well-behaved child in a restaurant. So his table manners were impeccable. He would pick up his napkin and place it on his lap and hold his silverware correctly and not chew with his mouth full and not talk with his mouth full. And you really didn't know Ryan was in the restaurant. On one occasion, the family had an opportunity to go to dinner at the Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia. And Ryan was the only child with us. I think he was maybe around 10 years old. And so he was in his little suit, and we all sat at the table, his grandparents, his father and I, and nobody even realized there was a child sitting there. I mean, there are many normal children who would not be behaving as well as Ryan did in social situations. So because his father was so strict with him about his behavior, it sort of benefited Ryan. His father did not want to call attention to Ryan. He did not want him to stand out as somebody who was different. And so he would go to great pains to prep Ryan for every situation and circumstance so that no one would know that Ryan was mentally challenged unless they started a conversation with him. Sometimes it was a great frustration to me that he was so strict with Ryan and so intolerable of Ryan's imperfections. And I think that he longed for the day that Ryan would leave us and move into a group home. He loved Ryan, but I believe that as Ryan grew older, he felt that Ryan would be a burden to us, and it was really terrible. I truly believe that it was a very strong reason that his father and I eventually separated and then divorced. But on the other hand, I was one of those mothers that felt that only I could take care of my son. And my ex-husband was doing research on group homes, and the thought of sending my son out of the house to live someplace else with other people was just something I could not accept. And my ex-husband and I had many arguments about this. He was determined that when our son turned 18 and was then eligible to move into a group home, that Ryan would move into a group home. And I was absolutely against it. What changed my mind? Well, honestly, I spoke with people who were in the field of special education. And one in particular was my sister-in-law. She worked with special children for her entire career. And she may not even be aware of the fact that I have her to thank for Ryan moving into another situation or moving out of the house. But she tried to drive home on various occasions, many conversations, that I really needed to think about things from Ryan's perspective. And I wasn't. And she felt that I was, in a sense, being very selfish, and I was only thinking of my needs, not his needs. And that if I really wanted him to have a fulfilling life and be a happy, productive person, I needed to let Ryan go out into the world and be who he is and do what he wants. Just because he was mentally challenged didn't mean that he couldn't have a happy, productive life, get a job, and live, not necessarily independently, but live away from us. So, after years of talking to her about it, and feeling as though my ex-husband was giving me an ultimatum, either him or my son, which was a choice I never wanted to have to make. Eventually, I came to realize that maybe it was the best idea for Ryan. So back in those days in the state of Pennsylvania, in order to get into a group home, you had to get on a waiting list. And the waiting list was, I don't know whether it was hundreds or thousands long. I had no idea because I hadn't gotten to the point where I had even explored this. But when I left, my ex-husband decided to put Ryan into a group home. And he did it by lying to the county and telling them that I had left. And he had no idea where I was. And he said, it's terrible, he said that he was going to put my son out on the street if they didn't accept him immediately. Fortunately, I had stayed in touch with my former mother-in-law, who was aghast at what her son was doing with her grandchild. And she called me on the phone and told me about a meeting on a particular day that Ryan was going to meet the staff at a group home in the area. And that they were having a meeting, the county people, group home staff managers, to decide if Ryan was a candidate for this particular group home. And she suggested that I just show up, which is what I did. Well, obviously everybody was surprised to see me because my ex-husband had told them that I had just taken off, disappeared, had nothing to do with my son or him anymore, and he had no idea how to reach me. And this was a situation of desperation. Well, in the end, they accepted Ryan into the group home. So while the means my ex-husband used to get him into the program was less than desirable, it was terrible, absolutely terrible, I guess the end justified the means. And so Ryan moved into that group home and actually was very happy. And I saw him every other weekend. He came and stayed with me. For a while he would go and stay with his dad, and by then his dad had a girlfriend, and so we would alternate weekends. So, and quite honestly, Ryan adjusted perfectly. You know, when there's divorce and there's remarriage and the blending of families, often the stepkids, they're tough. And I did have stepkids, normal stepkids, to deal with my now ex-husband. His kids were not very nice to me, and it wasn't fun. But through it all, the one guy who was very accepting and very happy throughout everything was my son Ryan. He adjusted fabulously. And he was part of the family, obviously. He loved coming and spending the weekends at our place. He loved helping his stepdad do all kinds of gardening and do other projects. And so he adjusted very well to the group home system. There were 3 other guys living in his group home at the time. They were not as highly functioning as Ryan. As a matter of fact, the other 3 guys were very low functioning guys. Ryan is fairly high functioning. For a guy that doesn't have the best language skills, when he opens his eyes in the morning, he starts talking, and he doesn't stop talking until he finally closes them at night. He's very chatty, very friendly, and he wants to be very helpful, and he gets along with everybody, and everybody just loves Ryan. He has become a very nice, happy, well-adjusted young man. My current husband, Jeff, he loves Ryan. Ryan loves him. Ryan prefers spending his time with Jeff when he comes to visit us. But he prefers to spend his time with the men in his lives. So when he lived in the group home and there were men in management, he liked hanging out with whatever men were managing or the staff. He liked doing guy things. So he lived in a group home from age 18 until he was about 40. So yes, he's all grown up now. It's hard to believe that in just a few weeks he is, well, actually not a few weeks, in just about a month he is going to be 42 years old. It's hard to believe I have a child that old. It makes me feel old. But he stayed in the group home system. He had moved from a group home with the low functioning guys to another group home where there were guys that were more active and more on the level with Ryan. And he stayed there until just about 2 years ago. And then about 2 years ago, we decided to move him out of the group home. I was unhappy with just the way things were going in the group home for him. His possessions would disappear. I didn't feel that they really did much to help enrich his life. I think the staff at the group home pretty much just put in a day's work, and they just didn't go out of their way to help Ryan do the things Ryan wanted to do. So it just, after all those years, I wasn't happy with the situation, and I asked to find another program. So now he is in a program that is a shared living program where Ryan and either an individual or a couple or a family, they decide that they want to share a living situation. So in this particular case, this is his second one. He's living with a couple whose children are grown, I believe. They have one son in college and one I think is still in school. I forget. Don't hold me to that. But for the most part, Ryan is the only guy hanging out there with these 2 people who are very nice people. And they happen to work for the company that runs this program. So it's kind of a win-win in that I don't have to worry about them not following the guidelines of the program and taking the best care of my son. Now, this is his second placement with this company. When he was 40, he moved in with another family, and then he found this wonderful couple who agreed to share their home with Ryan. So they go out and they find a home, and they take Ryan with, and they all pick out the house together. In this particular case, they found a townhome that they have gone in on together. Now, Ryan contributes towards his room and board. It goes to this couple, and they basically are employed by the company that they work for as part of this program. And I don't know how much they pay. Ryan probably pays a portion of his Social Security towards room and board, and that's his contribution to this home. And he has his own bedroom in the home, and in this particular case, he has his own bathroom. And these people take care of getting him to appointments and finding social activities for him to do. And they basically let Ryan be Ryan, and Ryan seems to be very happy there. Again, there's a man in the picture, and Ryan seems to become attached to whatever man is in his life. And I just think it's a perfect fit for him. So Ryan has always had a job. He actually started working when he was in school. I guess he was about 14, and he started working for a company that took in project work for companies that had assembly line work. And Ryan would work sort of on assembly line doing things, and he'd get paid per piece. And so this was part of his school day, going to this company that employed all of these handicapped people. I believe they got a tax break for employing all the handicapped people to do all of the projects that they took in. So for years, he was putting buckles on pallet straps. So, you know, pallets in warehouses, and they have these, I don't know whether they're plastic straps. I don't know what the straps are made out of, but they had a buckle on the end of them. And it would be Ryan's job to attach the buckle to the belt or to the strap and then move it along where someone would put it on whatever the package was. And so he did that for many years, and he had a little ticker next to him, and every time he did one, he'd push the little ticker down, and he got paid by the piece. They also had a project for Ricola cough drops, and occasionally Ryan would be put on that assembly line, and he told us he was either building boxes, so maybe they had a flat cardboard box, and it would be his job to assemble the box and then put it on the assembly line. Sometimes he told me that he would be working on the assembly line, and it would be his job to put the bags of cough drops in the box. He seemed to like that best. So that's how he spent his days back when he was in school, and then when he was in the group home system. We did, actually I should say the county did have people, job coaches, take him out into the community to get him jobs working. At one point he worked for a fast food restaurant as a bus person, and unfortunately he lost that job because he was too friendly. He would stop and talk to people and tell them he liked what they were eating, and asked if that was their favorite. And you know, their job mopping up and cleaning the men's locker room at a gym. He had another job working for a restaurant, and I think for a while this was his favorite job. He was hired as a bus person, and the owner of the restaurant really took a liking to Ryan. He did not want a job coach with Ryan. He said that he would be the job coach, and so he taught him to wash dishes, and he taught him to bus tables. Unfortunately, there was that thing with Ryan being too friendly, and he would chat up the bartenders and the servers, and whenever he needed to be doing work, he was over in the bar flirting with the bartender. So after many more chances than he probably should have had, unfortunately, Ryan lost that job. So for many years, his support team stopped trying to get him jobs out in the community, and all along he was still doing the piecework at the workshop that took in all of those assembly jobs. So Ryan's dream job, for as long as I can remember, was to be a bagger in a grocery store. So whenever he was a child, he would always say to me, "Mommy, I want to work here, I want to do that." And he would point to the bagger and he'd tell the bagger, "I want to work here, I want to help you." and we could never get him a job as a bagger in a grocery store. Ryan has a partner, a woman who he spends his days with. I don't remember her exact title, but she takes him out every day, and they either do volunteer activities, or he has a job, or they just go to the movies. She is employed by this company that manages the shared living program, and her role, which she was required to be very well trained for this and approved, I guess, by the county and state, she just spends her days with Ryan doing all kinds of things. Well, Ryan told her that he wanted to work in a grocery store bagging groceries. And so, I'm happy to report that probably about 6 months ago, he finally got his dream job and became a grocery store bagger. And so, I'm very proud of Ryan. He wanted this so bad, he just never gave up on this dream. And I mean, some of you may say, oh, big deal, he's a bagger at a grocery store. I have to tell you, it is a big deal. It's a big deal because that was his dream in life. That was his dream career. And so he got a job. Now it's only 1 day a week, and hopefully sometime they'll give him a second day. But I'm really happy for him because it's taken him all these years, but he finally found somebody who was able to make the wheels turn so that he could have the job that he really wanted to do. What's his personality like? Well, I sort of have alluded to this. Ryan is a very happy guy. I have never seen Ryan angry or upset ever in my life. I've never not seen him happy. I've never seen him angry, raise his voice at anybody, which is also a little bit of a negative, because if people picked on him when he was a little boy, he just let them. I mean, we had a neighbor who he and his brother would continually steal Ryan's bicycle. And at the time, it was a brand new bicycle that he had gotten for Christmas. And these kids took a look at the bike and said, oh, Ryan, can we take your bike? And then they would just take off in the neighborhood and not come back with it. And I finally had to have a conversation with their mother, who didn't appreciate my complaining about it. I don't understand people, but she eventually told her children that they were not allowed to play with Ryan because he was retarded. Don't play with the retarded boy. That was what she told them. And so then they would stand at the end of their driveway and taunt him and say, we're not allowed to play with you because you're retarded. I don't understand some parents. So anyway, in spite of all of this, Ryan's very happy, very well adjusted. He wants to do what everybody else does. He wants to have his own house. He wants to have a Jeep. When we've taken him places, he says he wants to live there. In some ways, he is normal. He has ambitions, he has hopes, he has dreams. He doesn't express them like normal adults do, but I know they're there. He gets very enthusiastic about parties and hanging out with people. He loves people. He loves to dance. He loves to sing. He's a terrible singer, but he loves to sing, so we let him do what he wants to do. I have to share one situation that recently came up with his new living situation with this couple that he moved in with. As I mentioned, Ryan likes to do what the man that's living closest to him is doing. And so he's living with this person that works for the company that they're both a part of. And Ryan knew the man before he agreed to go into a living situation with the man and his wife. And so he told this man that he wanted to work in his office with him. He wanted a job. So when they moved in together, Ryan said the same thing. And the husband was very nice, and he gave Ryan his own briefcase. I think it was an old briefcase he wasn't using anymore. So now Ryan has a briefcase. And he had an old computer that they weren't using, so he's setting Ryan up with a computer. Now Ryan can't really read a whole lot. Just, emergency words. So it's not like he could type a whole sentence or type a letter or communicate on his own on email or read Facebook pages or anything. He can't do things like that. But there are things he likes to do on a computer. Math type things. Probably likes to look at videos and things like that. He likes to look at my videos from my YouTube channel. So they recently helped Ryan buy himself a desk, and they've got the computer set up on there. And so now in the family room of that house, they have the desk for the husband that lives there, and there's a desk for Ryan, and then there's another desk for their son to use when he's home. So I thought that was very cute. And Ryan is just loving it. He's having a great time. I can tell when my son is happy. What concerns do I have about him? At the moment, I don't have any concerns about him. I feel that he is in a very good living situation with people who honestly give a damn about him. They care about his welfare, his well-being. I'm sure they want to see him smile and be happy and having a good time. And the couple that he's living with right now, they treat him, I want to say, as an equal. They talk to him as an adult. They don't talk to him as a child. They don't treat him like a child. And they listen to him, and they share ideas, and he expresses his interests, his needs. He even told them what chores he was going to do when he moved into this house with them. But out there in the world, the only concern I have is that people will take advantage of Ryan. People that aren't close with him. Fortunately, he's rarely alone, left alone. He doesn't like to be alone, although in the situation he's living in now, they're starting to work with him on being okay alone for a little bit, taking a walk around the block alone for a little bit. And so I have some minor concerns about what will happen if he doesn't come back from that walk one day or somebody takes advantage of him. I don't know, probably unfounded, but I'm a mother. I still have to worry about these things, and I went through his childhood with a lot of unkind people and mean kids, treating him very poorly and disrespectfully. So, in the back of my mind, there is that bit of concern. The good thing is he's making friends in the neighborhood, and so I have to believe that people in the neighborhood will know that Ryan is challenged, and if they see Ryan in an untoward situation, they will step in and get him out of it, I guess. I have some minor concerns also. My husband and I are going to be moving to France in a couple of years, and basically we're going to be retiring there. And so, I have some concerns about Ryan traveling to France. I mean, of course, we're going to have him come and visit us a couple times a year. He comes to see us now. We live in Florida and he lives in Pennsylvania. He comes to see us now twice a year. He comes around his birthday, he comes around Christmas time, and he stays for around a week each time. When we're living in France, he may stay a little bit longer than a week each time. But I have some concerns about, how we're going to get him there, because he can't really do a connecting flight. So we're going to have to find somebody somewhere in the world who maybe does this for a living, takes challenged people on flights to places and then turns around and comes back. So, I mean, I have that minor concern. So that's in the back of my head, not something I have to worry about at the moment. Ryan's a good guy. You know, he knows how to get dressed. He knows how to brush his teeth, take a shower. You know, he knows how to take care of himself. I guess living with somebody else. He could never live alone. I would be very concerned about him living alone, and I'm not sure that's ever going to be an issue. What advice would I give other parents? Well, first of all, if you are new parents of a mentally challenged baby, it's okay to cry. And it's okay to question everything. And when Ryan was first diagnosed as being developmentally delayed, I looked for answers. I thought, is it something I did? Was it something the doctor did? But none of these things gave me the answer that I was looking for as to why. Why is my baby, or my, at this point, toddler, why is he mentally challenged? Or at that point, they were calling it developmentally delayed. Why? So if you're new parents, ask questions, ask all the questions, explore everything. Don't let any stone be unturned. But give your child every advantage, every opportunity to learn. Find every program that you possibly can that will help your child progress and grow and become a contributing member of society in whatever way that will mean to them. If you are the parents of a mentally challenged adult and you're afraid to let go, you need to find a way to do that, because you're not going to live forever. And if you are keeping your child or children at home with you, you are depriving them of the ability to feel like they're somewhat independent, living their own life, because you're always there for them. You're always doing for them. And yes, maybe they go out and they have a job or they go to a day program. But you need to think ahead. Think ahead to when you're too old to be able to take care of them, because then it might be even harder to let go of them. And I would start introducing them to programs wherever they are in their age or growth. I would start introducing them to programs where they're away from you for periods of time, and maybe try to ease yourself. Take advantage of respite care. That was great when Ryan was a child. There was a respite program that I tapped into with the county, and whenever my husband, his father, and I wanted to go away for a weekend and needed a break, rather than looking for a babysitter that wasn't skilled or knowledgeable about dealing with a mentally challenged child, I simply called the respite program and I made arrangements for them to send someone over. And it could either be for hours or a day or a weekend or a few days. There was even a program in the summertime. It was part of the respite program, and it was a summer camp that we took him to for a week. And so if we wanted to go on a trip without him, we would take him to this camp for mentally challenged kids, and he would spend the week swimming and riding horses and doing all kinds of camp things with other people his age. And my son loved it. So you need to, as I was told many years ago, you need to take yourself out of the equation and think about it from your child's or your young adult's perspective. What do they want in life? What are their dreams? Do they want to feel like an independent, contributing member of society? So these are the answers to most of the questions that people, actually all of the questions that I get from people or have gotten from people over the years on how I deal with having a mentally challenged son. When Ryan comes to stay with us in the summertime and at Christmas time, we have fun with him. Ryan loves to go out in our boat, and my husband lets him drive the boat, which scared the hell out of me. I will admit it. He let him drive. We had a sailboat, the first boat. Actually, his former stepfather let him drive that boat too. That was a big power boat, a 34-foot boat. And when we got out in the ocean and there were no other boats around, he would call Ryan over and put a hat on him and say, okay, you're the captain now, start driving. And he would tell Ryan where to drive and how to turn the wheel, and they'd stay away from markers and things. So Ryan got his start there. And then I think we were on a little ferry tour one time, and the ferry boat captain let Ryan drive that boat. And so, since Jeff, my husband, has been in our lives and we have our own boat, Ryan still likes boating. And so he has a hat that Jeff gave him that Ryan calls his captain's hat. And Ryan will actually drive the boat down the canal from behind our house out into the river and then out into the Gulf with Jeff's direction. I just sit there and I bite my tongue. Jeff assures me I don't have to worry. We're not going to hit houses. We're not going to hit anybody else's boat. And so far, yeah, knock wood, we've been safe. But Ryan loves doing that. He likes going to a neighborhood bar with us on karaoke night. He likes singing. He likes dancing. He likes to go out and have fun. And so what else is life about? You've got to enjoy life. And mentally challenged or not, these are our children. And so you have to enjoy your children. God gave this child to you because he felt you were special, that you could handle this. If you have questions or concerns or anything you'd like to share, as I said before, please feel free, comment below. I'm always open to conversation. If I can help you with resources or ideas on how I found things that I found or that other people found for my son. So thank you so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if I added something to your life with this video. And that way YouTube will show it to lots more people. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.